are looking at the standard Druid this time. So Druid, as usual, is kind of ramp up and then try and play good stuff. So probably to start with, look at this card. This is a very, very important card. You can often basically completely clear the board. A very good combo that I've used several times, and I think it's gonna hold me good stead. Is if you've got enough mana, or even if you don't, you can do Hedge Mage, Innovate into Ozumat. It's a very, very powerful card. Obviously, I've got some of the newer cards from the latest expansion in this section. This is very, very useful. And I was actually just you can't do like a trigger on it if you've got the last one and then trigger it. It won't work like that. So it's like that's just one of the edge cases I was looking at. But it's still very, very useful. Often you don't. I mean, often I find Hedge Maze is better to use on Flesh Behemoth. It can be very useful. It can get out some of the other horsemen. Or, but yeah, just going back anyway to the actual ramp and maybe the early game. Cards like this, like you can often I often play. In the early game. I suppose I'd keep that. I'd keep basically anything under. Base most of the stuff. Pathmaker, very useful to play that after you've done it. Gain 2 mana crystals, then you can get a 3/3/4 draw 3 cards, which is pretty good. Moonlit Guidance, obviously, this is pretty useful. I'm trying to think the best situation for this. Obviously, it's got the copy effect. It's always important to realize that this has got the copy effect. It's the only way you're actually going to be generating extra cards. So, for example, what you might want to do is, and remember what this really means, right? You're discovering a copy, right? So, I mean, it is pretty good. It is pretty good, but useful for this. One of the cards that is basically going to be, I don't know if it's going to be popular or I don't even know if I have it. Yeah, Steam Cleaner. This is a card which is going to be a very important counter card. So if you sort of think you just have to learn what decks you're playing against. But if you're going to be playing against a card like this, you basically want to make sure you don't have too many of these out there. Obviously, you can get a bunch for example, right? You could get two. You could try to think of a scenario what I actually did to sort of deal with this card. If you play this, you can play a copy, and then you can hedge maze it. So then so then they could actually, so you're still going to have 2 sets left, right? You're still going to have the death rattle, the actual death rattle of it. I mean, you could do it twice, I suppose. You'd have even more, but it's just certain things to do with the ending of the game. Because there's certain classes against Death Knight, against Mage, where you sort of can basically make sure that you're in the game with this. This is a very, very powerful card because it's not actually, it's only 3 other cards you need to play right beyond that. I just found this card to be very, very powerful just as soon as I started playing with it. But definitely that is something you have to keep look out for. It depends what you're going in terms of the end game there. Now Underking, this is really useful at a pinch if you're in the situation where you're losing a lot of health. You might need to do that on this. Remember, it is an undead as well. If we look at the undead, basically a lot of stuff is undead. Yeah. Chitinous Plating, obviously, it's very useful. It's 8 armor for 2 mana, which is very good. But yeah, like I say, Pathmaker, I do normally do it on the Nourish. Obviously, there's certain cards you're always going to be looking for this, but sometimes it's just not viable to play it early enough at the sort of stage you want to play it. But you don't want it to be. You don't want to be going to the final third of the game, the final third of your deck, without it. Obviously, if you've got less cards, this will appear more. If you can generate loads of them. If you feel like they don't have Steam Cleaner, then I guess you can start generating more. But yeah, Underking's good. This is obviously very useful for Taunt and Thaddeus. We haven't even spoken about Thaddeus yet, but Thaddeus is always worth pointing out that whatever it says, basically, when it's their turn, it's going to change as soon as it becomes your turn. So worth keeping that in mind. You can obviously draw cards if you're late in the game. But yeah, it's pretty useful when you actually end up, this is, and also just to sort of mention, like, in a way, there's sort of like there's kind of like a similarity between Flesh Behemoth and Moonlit Guidance, right? And it's obviously even more powerful. That is definitely a really nice combo of the Hedge Maze on the Flesh Behemoth. You can't do. I guess you could do 2 Innovates. I haven't really done that. But normally you're going to want the Hedge Maze out earlier if you can somehow get it out earlier. This would always be my sort of first target to get. Obviously, if you get a Thaddeus out of it, it's really super powerful. Because basically it means you're going to have a chance to play another card, right? You can put out your Behemoth. This is assuming you only got 10 mana. Do the Hedge Maze on it. Thaddeus appears, and then who knows what you're going to play, right? Put a stick out Underkey. And that's a way to like. That's also very powerful often. But I think the thing with aquatic form is that most of the time you're going to want to play it. Like, I guess if you can get like cheap stuff. Another thing to point out actually that I was thinking about is when it says if you have the mana to play the card. For example, what you could do, say you're on turn 4, you could basically do like you could do a coin to get to turn 5, and then it will be triggered by the dredge, right? So you got to be so before you do it, you could say, well, look, I've got a nourish in hand, but what if I dredge a coin into dredge into aquatic form, and then I'll get like a guff, and I get a guff, happen to get it, but if I don't get the guff, I can still play the nourish, for instance. So there's like different or maybe you've got this you also have to keep in mind. Want to play this one in the first sort of first half, I guess, of the game. You haven't really got that many, because not many of these are actually nature. Innovate is nature, nourish is nature. Any other natures? I don't think so, right? No, because that draw card can be kind of useless, but depends. It depends, right? It depends if you still got any nourishes or innovates left. Obviously, they're super useful cards to have. So, and then obviously this is like your if everything else has failed, you need to just go against it. Go against a huge board. But the thing is, the more general point is that you even if you're lower on health, you can often pull like a bunch of these, right? Especially if you get you get them out of the Behemoth or something like that. Obviously, they don't trigger the battle cry, but you still get the death rattle, which is still 6 armor, right? Which is pretty good. And they still got rush. So, basically, no. The point I was just previously just making is that you don't always just think it's easy to think just go into this, but you can really tank quite a lot of health, right? In comparison to, well, I guess there was that Line Cracker Druid, but apart from that one, with that ridiculous combo, Druids have not been able to tank I guess they did. I guess Druids kind of have been able to tank health now I think about it, with that 4 mana, which gives you the choice between getting health and drawing a card or increasing the minion's attack. But I just think there's a lot of opportunities to. This card is so good, and to be honest, so is this. So it's you can tank a lot of health. It's better to take damage and then try and recover it later on. Because there's not that many yes, I suppose against mage there is that that arcane bolt one that does with that card with the mana thirst, what it's called. I think that's what it's called. But a lot of decks are not going to be doing large amounts of damage. But yeah, another card you could put in that I did try putting in, but I didn't really. I don't know. It does actually. You do actually get a This is a cool card. 10/10 with charge. It's just the mana thirst is ridiculous, but it's actually an achievement on that. But anyway, that will do for now, so thanks for watching.